Welcome to the Brain Software Podcast. This is episode 290. If you ever have conflict with someone else, you need this episode. If you ever deal with coaching someone through conflict, you need this episode. We're going to share with you how to deal with conflict, whether it be de-escalating, neutralizing, taking control, or turning conflict into cooperation. And we're going to give you the one big mistake that you need to avoid, or be able to recognize when other people commit this horrendous logical mistake. So here we go, episode 290 from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, how are you tonight? Thanks once again. Well, I got a lot of stuff to do in this podcast, so I'm just going to jump right in with a question, which is as follows. A note to all the hypnosis trainings, books, programs, and podcasts that have gone on before us. We really appreciate you because you've done a great job. Thanks once again. But we'll take it from here. Maybe that sounds harsh, but can you really stop us? Can you stop us at all?
These are days of victory. So let's welcome to the studio of tomorrow, the Captain Crunch of Hypnotic Inductions. The quarterback who always shows up with a hypnotic touchdown, the mannish boy of hypnotic happiness, Mike Keith Richards Mandel.
Yes! Crisp little one today, Chris.
Oh yeah.
Crisp little one. Let's go into what's coming up on this awesome podcast, buddy.
All right, so we're going to talk about all kinds of ways to deal with conflict. We were talking about this recently, just with different situations from our own lives, whether it be situations we've been directly involved with or somebody who needed help and advice, because conflict just seems to happen often, and I think
frequently,
it really does. And over the years, I've just learned so much from a variety of sources, but the main one being you, just linguistic ways to understand what's going on, and then frame questions or de-escalate or chunk up to getting to an agreement frame. I think it's really useful. So that's really what we're going to talk about here in this episode. Before we do, let's make sure that we remind you can go to our website, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can get a bunch of free stuff. Our Brain Software Syndicate is an amazing first-time membership product to consider. It's like $9 a month and gives you access to about $1,900 worth of our courses, all included in one membership, which is phenomenal. And if you want to study hypnosis with us, of course, our Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy currently has a $1 trial for the first week. So that's worth checking out. If you just go to MikeMandelHypnosis.com, the navigation is pretty freaking obvious and you'll figure it out. All right, let's get on with the show.
I'm loving it. You know, let's talk about conflict, because conflict is inevitable in life. These are lice. They hate each other. And in life, people naturally are abrasive with each other because we have different personalities, different outcomes, different values, and so on. When people talk, communicate, are in each other's presence, there's often a bit of abrasion. There's often sparks of some kind. And there's one extreme, which is the mistake of thinking, oh, I've just got to avoid conflict at all costs. And then you become a doormat or somebody who just...
Actually, that's a really great way to kind of open the discussion. That's a really great way to sort of, like kind of maybe open the discussion, because if you always have conflict, you're going to be perceived as a dick,
right?
And you'll have no friends, and you'll never feel at peace or connected to other people. That's one extreme. And at the other extreme, if you were to never have conflict,
you mean by actively avoiding it?
Avoid it, or just be a yes person, yes man, yes woman, whatever you want to call it, a yes person, always saying yes. You're going to always universals. You're going to feel most of the time like you're being walked all over, like you have no control.
Resentment. I mean, because people don't like
creeping resentment.
Creeping resentment. People don't like their boundaries being overrun. And we all need boundaries. As an Enneagram 8, the problem for me is I tend to make walls instead of boundaries. And I've learned over the years that boundaries are permeable. They can be adjusted. But people with no boundaries at all, then they're in the position of just agreeing, doing what everybody else wants. And we've talked about this before many times. So conflict is normal, but it's not something to fear. There's nothing wrong with humans not agreeing on every point. Now, this doesn't mean they're not getting along. It means there'll be stuff that is tabled at some points. It could be personal. It could be just something you're having a discussion with a friend in a car and you get onto some point that you don't agree on. That's normal humanity. It's normal human communication. So it's not something
actually, that's probably the most common one too. When, like, let's say you're just to your point, having a road trip with your buddy or something, and you get on some sort of discussion, hopefully not religion, politics, things like that, because those tend to be very, very triggering for so many people. But it could be kind of anything. It could be whether a particular degree is worth pursuing in university, or whether a particular, I'm just thinking school because I was dropping my kids off at school recently. Could be something like, is this professor a good guy or bad guy? Or, you know, is this a fair, is this situation fair or unfair? There's going to be all kinds of situations where friends or couples or whatever,
colleagues,
are getting into a bit of an argument over something. And if it's just a difference of opinion, and sometimes the best response is to just understand, for both people to understand, hey, everyone can have their own opinion.
Sure.
So how do you get to that? If you're the person realizing, hey, this is just a difference of opinion.
Yes.
I don't want it to be an argument.
And let's talk in the classic sense of argumentation is using rhetoric and different tools to get to some sort of resolution,
as opposed to the more colloquial use of the term.
You're fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's not necessarily the case, but it's interesting because conflict can be the forerunner of making useful changes, because if we can look at it appropriately and instead of freaking out and, oh, you think, which vast majority of people I'm related to do, then we're able to use that as some sort of platform from which that we can find resolution.
Actually, that's a great way to think of it, because
it is.
Yeah. If you don't ever have the conflict, you never really have that activating event to trigger the change, right? So if, for example,
that's a good point.
Let's say you internally have a certain feeling about, I don't know, let's say the kinds of food that you buy at the grocery store, and your husband or your wife or whatever, your spouse basically has a different opinion, and both of you are unhappy in some way, and it never comes up. How can it ever be resolved?
It cannot.
And how can you ever make the change? So conflict doesn't necessarily have to mean anything bad. It's just bringing to the table some. Yeah, you got it. You're happy with that now. Yeah, you're just adjusting the conflict with the microphone.
Yeah.
Bringing something to the table that needs to be resolved. And so you have to bring up the conflict. The perfect conflict is, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Okay, great. This happens. Discussion happens. Agreement happens. Now we've resolved it. Now life is better for everyone, right?
Yeah, and the point you made, indirectly but perfectly, is the whole concept. Unless you bring it up, it cannot be resolved. And some people flee conflict to such a degree that they won't even table these things because of the kinesthetic, the feeling they get from it.
Yes.
And so to be able to say, okay, we need to talk about this is very important. Again, attitude is going to be very, very first and foremost here, because okay, we need to talk about this. That is already putting the other person down.
That's probably key number one, is to go into the conflict with the right attitude. And the right attitude, I'm going to ask you this. You tell me if you agree.
Right.
I think that the right attitude has to be either that I refuse to argue if it's not going to be something that's going to resolve positively and the person's just looking to get into an argument. I'm not interested in arguing with you. For example, remember we were talking about narcissistic supply.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if you want to mention that as part of this at all, but if somebody's just attacking or arguing because they need attention in some way, not a good outcome really from that. So you can just take the perspective, I'm not going to engage in this argument.
Yeah, I'm not going to fuel it.
I'm going to be neutral about things. Or you have to go in with the attitude that I'm going to be such an awesome listener. Either way, you probably want to be a good listener. I'm going to be an awesome listener such that this gets resolved. This gets turned from conflict into collaboration.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Collaboration is everything, isn't it? And that was something that was very hard for me to adopt, because I've always been a lone wolf, and we've been collaborating for 12 years or something now, which is great. But one of the things going into any sort of conflict, the concept that disagreement does not have to become escalation.
Yeah, exactly. You can the idea of you can agree to disagree. We can all agree to disagree, but sometimes people aren't thinking about that. So just having a conflict doesn't mean that it has to escalate.
Right. Now, we've talked before about the 3 levels of discussion or argumentation.
That's a great thing to bring up.
And the level 1 is the best place to be. Level 1 is pure data. We're looking at the facts the other person is expressing. We're not interrupting. We're not jumping to conclusions. We're not finishing their sentences for them.
We're
not saying you always,
notice my restraint.
Yes,
not interrupting you.
Wonderful. But when we keep the discussion point or points around data, that's the best possible way to avoid escalation. Now, level 2, somebody might bypass a shibboleth, they step on one of our sacred cows, and we start getting pissed off. Now we start to get an adrenaline.
Some emotion is brought into the situation,
yes.
right?
So we have the suprarenal gland sitting there discharging adrenaline into our system.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, the adrenals.
So when you feel the emotion kicking in, that's your adrenal glands starting to pump out a bit of adrenaline. Ramping up you're ready to, I guess it's technically from a biological standpoint.
Of course
it's fight or flight.
Fight or flight. Fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
It's the one people always leave out. But the thing is, always, universal.
Always.
But the interesting thing about it is if you can keep it at level 1, you're great. If you start to get the adrenaline trickle, that's when you need to breathe.
Treat it like a breath. Reminder
to put your seat.
Yeah, reminder to put your seatbelt on.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Because if you don't do that, the more adrenaline you get, you then move into level 3, which is adrenaline soaked, like gasoline. And at this point, you begin to, I don't know if you know this, but one begins to polarize into black and white thinking. The gray disappears.
Yeah.
And it's, you're wrong, I'm right.
I'm thinking about this in comparison to, let's say, again, with my kids both being at university right now, it's lots of partying is going on in the university, right? So kids are drinking a lot of booze or whatever. Now, when you have too much alcohol in your system, you can make some pretty stupid decisions, like filters go out the window. And I wonder if it's the same thing with the adrenal gland. If it pumps a lot of adrenaline into your body and you're emotionally caught up, your ability to regulate and make good decisions goes out the window.
That's a very good point.
So you sort of become a drunk arguer, not drunk in the sense of an actual, well, I guess it is a drug. It's called adrenaline. The body is making drugs.
Adrenaline, I think it was Dabney Ewan said, it is the most powerful known stimulant.
Yeah.
And nicotine is second.
Isn't that interesting? Wow.
So people say they smoke to calm their nerves, which is kind of
so in a sense, when you get into this emotional state, because it's triggered by, hormones are going along with it. Adrenaline is a hormone.
Yes, it is.
So hormones are technically drugs. If they were exogenous, they would be considered drugs. But if they're in your own body, they're just internal drugs. So basically, emotions cause you to be on drugs when you're arguing. And
and I'm thinking how we could push this into such a funny area. I could have shown up with my 2 EpiPens.
Oh my God! There you go.
Okay, let's have a discussion. We each do a hit of adrenaline.
Oh, that would be hilarious. We'll give the other guy the hit.
Yeah.
You have to stab it through my genes, and I stab it through yours.
This is getting weird in a way I'm not quite comfortable with. But
it's so weird.
So you don't have to escalate, and that's the thing. When we have adrenaline coming in, now our volume starts to go up as well.
Yes.
We think the other person is deaf.
So our volume goes up also when we're having a great time.
Well, I know.
That's not adrenaline though, is it? Or is it?
No, it's not. I think it's enthusiasm.
Yeah, but there's probably some other hormone involved that's not adrenaline. But you're right. With adrenaline comes volume. Don't mistake volume for adrenaline every single time, because obviously, I can remember being at campfires with my buddies, and we're just getting really loud and not realizing not realizing we're waking up the whole campground because we're just being idiots. But we're having a good time, not having a conflict. Right. It's just volume for the sake.
Then the Hall & Oates starts playing at 2:30 in the morning. It's a whole other thing with him. Now, this is interesting because when we have conflict, this is a clash of ideas. And that's a great way to frame it. It's a clash of ideas, but that can be managed. It's not a clash of people. It doesn't have to become we're fighting with each other.
Your idea is
on
not
the table.
you. Yeah. Good point.
It's not me, but it is you.
That's right.
There's cultures that avoid conflict altogether. There's one, I'm not going to name it because if I do, everybody will
someone will cancel. Attempt to cancel you.
There is an entire culture where they're very amenable, very friendly, but it is called the angry smile.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
So they're acting like everything's fine, but in reality, there's an underlying...
By the way, I love how you don't name the culture, because if you do, you'll be deemed as, some sort of hater of that culture. We were talking before the podcast about how just having an opinion on something doesn't mean that you hate it. People will these days throw around terms like, phobic. Oh, you're an ex-hater or an ex-phobic. Just having an opinion doesn't make you scared or hate or having hate towards it. So let's keep that in mind, right? So I notice how you're being very careful not to mention whatever the culture is. I don't even know what it is.
I'll tell you over lunch.
I can imagine there are probably different, and a culture is not the same as a religion or a race or anything like that. It's just a group that shares the same, belief system.
The same paradigm that they coexist in.
Okay, so
some have found to eliminate conflict, just the angry smile.
So, but getting back to what you said, that they avoid conflict, and then they have the angry smile. I'm using air quotes here. So the angry smile, meaning
the one I'm doing right now.
You're bottling up resentment, right? If you're
Well,
not
of course.
ever able to table
resentment is toxic. I mean,
Yeah.
when I used to be a therapist from 1993 to 2000, I dealt with a couple of cases of rheumatoid arthritis, one of the 4 types, and the joints of the hands were just knotted up. And in both those cases, I did some investigating and found out both people were carrying huge amounts of resentment.
Isn't that interesting?
It's a definite connection.
I was just talking to Timothy September, our head of coaching at Mike Mandel Hypnosis and the creator of Enter the Loop. I'm using that quote, it's trademarked, Enter the Loop. And he actually just told me that he was working with a client, and this is all public because it's recorded. I don't know the person's name,
Right.
but the person had arthritis in the feet. And then just after one Enter the Loop session, went away.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now this he was mentioning just like going on long walks that weren't possible in the past.
Yeah.
All because probably it was tied to some unresolved emotion.
Yeah, definitely. And it will be resentment, which is anger that is allowed to fester. And I saw the same thing. If people would get their freedom back again. It's interesting. Listen to this line. I wrote this. I'm really happy with this. Conflict that is unresolved will not go away. It gets recycled.
This is interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about conflict that's unresolved is like pressure building up in a bottle, right? And eventually it just wants to explode. So if it doesn't resolve, it doesn't go away. Same idea. If the pressure doesn't resolve as a release valve of some sort, it's still going to be there.
Yeah.
And it can just recycle.
Now, there's personal conflicts, triggers and anchors. And let me ask you this. What sets you off emotionally? We all have these things. I know when people don't let you finish your point, they interrupt, or they don't listen.
Yeah. So for me, one that historically has always
That's
bothered
been sort
me.
of the same with me.
Yeah. You're just like, if I'm attempting to make a point, and I'm not telling a Ken Sweatman story.
No.
Like I'm not going on and on and on. Like I'm about to. No, I'm kidding. I'm just making my clear point, and I get interrupted over and especially if it's repeated. That can start to get very frustrating. And so the emotions will bubble up. I have to recognize that and go, okay, probably what I need to do now is wait to make sure, calibrate properly that this is the right time to bring this up.
Right.
And if it is, then simply make my expectations clear. Listen, I need your attention right now because this is important. Something like that. Something data-driven.
And it demarks that now we're going into something more significant at this time. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And that
So,
works
and
for
what about for you?
Frickin' idiots who whisper when they're not supposed to. It drives me raving mad. And the other one is my sister installed this when I was a little boy. So I was 7, she was 14. And I remember she would push my buttons, get me really wound up and mad.
And then what?
She just
Shush you.
Just
yeah.
And and my mom would say I was having tantrums.
Yes.
Temper tantrums.
I know another one that bothers you, which is any kind of disgusting talk at the dinner table.
Oh, yeah, they'll kill a person.
Yeah.
I don't put up with that. And people who, eat chocolate cake with their mouth open to show you what they're eating. I could blind them or stick a knife in their freaking head.
Yeah, so
I
that's
hate it so
triggering
much.
for you.
Remember I said
Okay.
the guy did that at Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
This 20-something kid goes, burps really loud. And I put my knife and fork down. And I said, I'm very easily put off my food and I'm extremely auditory. And if you do that again, I'll come around to your side of the table. I'll break your freaking legs in front of your family. And he didn't do it again. And his dad just sat there.
Oh,
like this.
wow. Yeah. Not
Wreck my
advocating.
Christmas dinner? Are
Maybe
you
not a good idea to don't model this.
No, don't model
threatening
that.
people.
That's a long time ago. It's nearly 2 years now.
I'm sure he knew you were kidding.
I wasn't kidding. I was totally kidding. It's a kind of comedy. Stop shushing me. You must.
Oh, what was the other one? Oh, yeah. So you mentioned whispering is a trigger, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But this
Inappropriate
is something
whispering.
I accidentally said, and this is usually what turns into humor for us, just what I said upstairs before we started recording. And I said, my whisker word has become, or whatever it is. I think that's
Word whisker.
Yeah, word whisker. Thank you. Word whisker or phrase whisker, I suppose, is it could be blah, 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 or whatever it is. The or whatever it is piece is the whisker
new
word.
installation.
And I said, oh, that's my whisker word, but I actually said that's my whisper word by accident.
Word whisker.
Word whisker,
again.
word whisper. Thank you. You
Right.
corrected me. So we thought it would be really funny to start noticing people's word whiskers and repeating them to the person in a whisper. So if they keep saying, you know what I mean, you go, you know what I mean? Or, I know what you mean.
Gosh.
Yeah,
gosh.
it'd be kind of funny to do that. So
Kind of
that's the
horrible.
challenge. I'm going to start doing that
I
to
think
people.
the whispering thing drives me nuts when it's inappropriate. I think my mother installed this because when I'd be studying for school, and I freaking hated studying, and you know me, Chris, when I lock my brain down, my brain starts to go faster and faster, and I can skim books and get the information really, really fast. But as soon as someone interrupts me, just stops the flow, it takes me like 10 minutes to get it back again. And I know because I have used clean language to figure this program out.
That's why the whispering bugs you, because your mom
my mom
used
would
to
come in. She didn't understand that just coming in has now interrupted me. And she'd say, I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, you already have.
Just did, yeah. So it's tied to whispering. Yeah. Funny.
Would you like a cup of tea?
Stop it. Yeah, I do want a cup of tea.
So that makes perfect sense that would actually be the initial sensitizing event or whatever I just did it.
Whatever you did, your word whisker.
Whatever. Yeah.
Can I just point out how much I'm enjoying the semi-turned looking at it this way?
Yes,
I thought I was going to have to go.
That's
right. Good. This works. I can.
Okay, let's keep going on this.
Well, here's another one.
We got to teach people some ways to deal with
record keeping. Old tape loops and record keeping. When people keep a record of wrongs and unpack it for later.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a friend. I hate that one. Wally Shawn, all the way through my dinner with Andre. I mean. Of course you mean it. That's why you're saying stop saying I mean. It's another one drives me mad. But this friend of mine, somebody you do not know, his wife actually keeps a folder on her computer of
disagreements.
Everything about him that bothers her.
Oh, that seems
so
productive.
She can stir them up and unpack
That's
them.
That's a great way to aim your reticular activating system at all of the things that you don't like about a person, to just keep them top of mind unconsciously and consciously.
Yeah, but if you said that to her, here's what she'd say. Yeah, well, you don't have to live with them.
And neither do you. You're making a choice. That would be my response. You don't have to live with them. It's a smart ass
Let go of the past. Let it go. And that's where I think, my 6-step tapping thing helps you let go of stuff. Another one that drives me mad is, because I used to do this a lot. And when I realized it, when we discover we're doing these things, like not listening.
I'm listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we discover we're doing these, that's very eye-opening, because when we discover we're making these communication mistakes, instead of someone telling us, when we find it on our own, I think we're much more liable to repair it or get rid of it.
Oh, yeah. If you're having a conflict with someone and they tell you what you're doing wrong in the argument, it just pisses you off.
Yeah. Right. But the one is failure to listen. Because I was already preparing my response, waiting for them to finish what they're saying, so I can come in with this freaking death blow, a heart punch or something.
Right. So the genuine listening, and I suppose there's lessons here from mindfulness, being in the moment, not preparing for your future response, actually listening, actually going in with the intention of, I deeply care how this person feels so I can understand them, so I can best respond. And I think we should actually get to some ideas on how to do that, how to respond to people, just as we're going through. But I see you have a
well, let's start with this next one. Generate light, not heat. This is an attitudinal shift. So when you realize you're into argumentation, when you're with conflict with someone, recognize that certain things you say and do, your expression, rolling your eyes, all these things are going to generate heat.
That's a
and
great
you're going to have
metaphor.
adrenaline come. But generating light points the attention at different things. It's like, well, we can chunk up and say, well, I think we both want this to calm down, though, right? Like, we want to get past this. And the person will grudgingly say yes. So now you start focusing on, how can we get past this? And one of the tricks is to say we instead of you, or I instead of you.
Yeah, we mentioned that before. It's like
important.
That.
It's a recent one I've adopted, where instead of, you, I said you, it becomes, I feel uncomfortable with the way you're responding.
And in fact, you can often go along with the you always, the universals, right? When people are accusing another person of you always, instead of we, like, what would be better than that? Maybe we sometimes. We sometimes interact together in a way that could be more productive. Doesn't that make sense? You can throw in tag questions here. I know I'm throwing in some techniques that I'm just making up on the fly. That'll get people aligned, rather than you always interrupt me and you never listen.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, that was a situation I was involved in coaching someone to respond to quite recently. With a conversation was happening, and it was, you never listen to me about what I want. And so I coached the response to be, well, I'm listening right now and I'd like to hear what you want. Can you tell me what are the main things that you want to have happen here? And then the response just kept coming back, well, I've already told you and you never listen. It was going in a bit of a circle
me already.
So I coached the person again, just to respond with, I understand that in the past you've felt I haven't listened. I'd like to listen right now. Would you care to share? And it still didn't work until she had to offer a bit of a seed of, Well, I do remember you mentioning X and Y and Z. Is there anything else, or do you want to expand on those? So a bit of a double bind. Then all of a sudden, the person responded with, more information, which started to get them towards now an agreement frame, because the frame was, I want to agree on what the resolution is, right? Like you said, without the conflict, you can't get to an improvement.
You can't get to even the need for improvement. Right. Yeah, that's it. Now, this is good, because what we're talking about here, we were saying generate light, not heat. We have a subgroup here, and this is, how do we do that? So what do we do? We have to regulate our own emotions. And the one thing that I have not put in this, but I think is interesting and important, if you mistakenly become really soft and very soothing and very calming, to someone like me, that'll put me over the edge and it'll put your head through a freaking wall.
So you have to keep it neutral, right? Like,
it's not this very soft, very soothing.
Well, you know those, that makes me think of like crime movies where one of the mafia bosses or something is going to walk in and he's just going to be very calm about how this is what's going to happen.
But that's not the soothing aspect.
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
If you try to be all soothy, let me mother you in this scenario kind of thing, it might really piss the other person off. So you keep it calm, but neutral in tone, not all soothing and not all weird.
That can actually sound condescending to me, and that's the part of it that infuriates me. The other thing,
like you need to be soothed in this situation because you're the one. Implication, you're the one out of control. So the other one I was going to say was my 6-step tapping, or any of the EFT systems. EFT is now a generic term you can use for any of these tappings. If you depotentiate the things that make you mad before you go into a conflict that you're going to have to go into. Going in with a clean
and then getting into a powerful, resourceful state, not a powerful, dynamic, aggressive state. That's not the right one.
I like that. It's if you're going into it, or even let's say it starts and you need to continue and you can excuse yourself for a brief moment. Let's say, I've got to go use the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. And then you just take that moment to say, okay, what state do I need to be in? And I like the way you called it, making like a grocery list. Imagine you had a shopping list of things that you needed to buy at the store. Well, similarly, what is the perfect subpersonality ego state to show up to deal with this conflict? And then you can do the tapping, for example, that triple warmer that you teach. And, I am feeling I'm in a mood to listen. I am resourceful. I'm collaborative. I am congruent.
I'm calm. I'm
calibrating well. All these things, you can just call them to the executive so that when you return. And I actually mentioned breathing because I think I saw that on your notes.
Definitely, yeah. But we're going to have to go to a commercial break, Chris.
Oh, okay.
We're coming up to 5 to 11. Right?
Okay, we'll go to our commercial break and then we will come back and wrap it up. The Brothers Grimm Fairy Tale by Bradley X.
Yeah, hey kids, it's your old pal Bradley X speaking. I got another awesome fable for you in the style of the Brothers Grimm. So, once upon a time in a land far away, there was a small town called Shallow Lake. And the people were pretty good to live among, although there were some real bastards there too, like the dick who was the principal at Communist Martyrs High School just up the road in Minden. So anyway, it was a rainy day in Shallow Lake and Mayford and Owen Sound too, for all that matters. And there being a number of trucks skid off the road near Tim Hortons because of the crap tarmac they use now and that. So anyway, there were some guys who wanted donuts and coffee, but the truck crashes made it hard to get to the drive-thru. So the guys just stood outside yelling stuff until the weather changed, and then it all dried up. They went back to their houses and that. And some guys brought fireworks to the donut shop and then lost their nerve and didn't set them off. So that's the end.
Okay, let's continue on with regulating emotions.
Right. Well, what about pausing and breathing?
Well, yeah, because breathing is at the top of the chain of excellence, as per John Grinder's model. So if you control your breathing, that's going to have an effect on your physiology.
I'd say change your breathing.
Yeah, change your breathing. Yeah. Controlling it within a way that you want. Changing it to something. Well, I guess you take control of it. Then you change it to something that's more effective. So breathing will control your physiology. Physiology will control your state or have an effect on your state. Your state will have an effect on your performance. Right.
So when we say breathing, you can do the Huberman breathing, which is breathe a half breath through your nose. Suddenly you go.
That's the physiological side.
Again, you do it. Fill your lungs completely and then exhale slowly through pursed lips. Do that 3 times in a row, and you will make a massive change in your physical state. So that can calm you. Of course, you can look like a dick if you're doing it in front of the person, go like this. So you can simply take shorter in-breaths and long, relaxing external breaths. Just don't let your voice go like this when you do it. I'll kill you. Now, how about this one, buddy? Listen to the other person. You got to ask yourself, why might it be worthwhile to listen to this person?
That's a great question. Why might it be a good idea to listen to the situation clearly? And that we've talked about listening already. So if you've been listening or watching and listening, then you already know this, but it bears repeating, right? When you spend your time planning what you want to say next, rather than intentionally listening so that you can calibrate, so that you can really think about it, really be in the moment, and keeping it down below level 3 of argumentation, not going to the new. I don't think you said it, but level 1 was data. Level 2 is a bit of emotion. I think we got sidetracked.
To level 3, which
did we say
gasoline?
Yeah, number 3 is the freaking nuclear button, right? Yeah. You know, that's when you lose your mind. Yeah. And so if you're listening, you're more likely to keep yourself in the zone and stay at level 1 or level 2, dipping into level 2 occasionally.
That's good. Now, you mentioned again about not waiting, not internally deciding on what you're going to say, listening to them, but only so you get to break the conversation so you can make your kick-ass point.
Right.
And close on the heels of that is don't interrupt at all. Let the person get through their point.
Especially in conflict.
Key. Yeah.
I think that's really key because people always, there we go using universals. All over the place, we're always using universals. People are often emailing us or commenting and saying, oh, you guys interrupt each other too much on the podcast. That's not a conflict. That's excitement and enjoyment.
Caffeine.
We do that. And that's normal that when people are in a great mood together and they're sharing stories, they're interrupting each other in a non-confrontational way.
Yes.
But if it's a confrontation, 100%, you do not, that is not a situation where you have necessarily a level of rapport.
Good point.
Rapport is the difference, right? You're in a great mood, interruptions, cool. Maybe not for the listener if they can't hear what we're saying.
Good point.
But we'll do it and it doesn't bother us. That's the key point here.
That's it. It just bothers you guys. Imagine my concern.
But in a conflict, for sure. Okay.
Now let's just fly through these last few points because they're worthwhile.
Right.
If you do NLP, you know about perceptual positions. This first position, that's I. You're inside yourself, fully associated, owning your emotions. There's you, which is the other person, and that is empathy. We're imagining we're dissociating into them and then associating into them, and experiencing the world through their state, which can enable us to really understand people's perception. It's a difficult one until you get the knack. And then the third one is dissociated, them. You're seeing yourself and the other person externally having this discussion. If you do that one, if you learn to dissociate, so right now I'm dissociated from he and I sitting here, and I'm just giving you pure data. If you can do that, I see what he's doing and I don't even care. So even the peripheral vision was so freaking brilliant. I saw the hands coming up and all the little motions of the hands. So the bottom line is learn to use perceptual positions to dissociate from the situation. And if you're still caught up in emotion, push that dissociation further away because that'll stop it spilling over. You have a comment there?
No, I don't. I think we can continue on with
that.
All right,
use conflict. Make it work for you to bring resolution instead of repeated tape loops, running them over and over 100%. And over, going around and around the same thing. Chunking up can help you find common ground. There's always common ground in negotiation, even if it's just everybody wants to be happy again.
Yeah.
There's ways of getting there.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
That's fine,
We are going to get to, I'm going to highlight the point that we need to get to because we did promise we would teach you guys about the one thing you definitely do not want to do and you want to recognize in others. It's a big mistake. But before we do, let's talk about the importance of how to ask questions. I don't know if this is on our list, but to me, this is a pretty critical one because if you're listening, then you're sensing there's a need for more information. There's a gap in the knowledge. There's a gap in the information. You're going to need to assemble the puzzle pieces such that you can construct the agreement, the cooperation chunk up. So I think you need to learn how to ask good quality questions. And when somebody's complaining, whether it be meta model approach, like someone says, you're always blah, well, always? Or do you really mean often? Let's talk about it. Whatever the case may be, you can learn to ask questions in a way that elicit more information.
Brilliant.
Without adding to the conflict.
Without adding more. Yeah.
Like a bad question. Why are you always so pissed off when this happens? Not a good question to ask when somebody's indicating that they're irritated at you, right?
Yeah.
What would you like to have happen? Probably a much better question.
What would you like to have happen? It's a great question. The interesting thing here, too, is the tonal quality is crucial. And this is often missed. If I want to understand what he's talking about and I say, how do you know that? That's an open question. It's fair and he can answer me. But if I say, how do you know that?
Yeah, that's the tone of...
Yeah. You know, I get that all the time. I'll make some pronouncement based on good research. And some say, well, you're not a doctor. To which my answer is, neither are you. Let's go back to the material.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let's look at this one more thing. This is an interesting thing to keep in mind. And this was new for me to understand this. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Conflict blocks creativity.
Ooh.
And managerial teams, work teams that manage conflict are more resourceful and more innovative than teams that do not.
So being in conflict, as long as it gets resolved, can inspire creativity.
Absolutely.
But if you stay in conflict, if you stay like
resources.
this instead of this, then we're doing the gestures in case you're only listening. So you'll have to watch the video to understand. But this is a gesture. The first this is a gesture of conflict.
Yeah.
And the second gesture is a gesture of meshing and therefore resolution.
Brilliant.
So once you resolve the conflict, you can get more creative.
And no mind reading. You don't know what people are thinking unless they tell you. So ask questions to clarify. Stay away from that horrible, horrible active listening thing that I've seen. I said before, I saw that in a church group. A man and his wife were having some issue, and they came forward, and this guy's teaching active listening out of this book. And so everything he says, she is supposed to reframe it into something different, which of course gets further and further from the point.
So distortion is really what's happening.
It's distortion, yeah. When in reality, we want to offer back their language to build rapport. So he says, I feel oppressed when I'm around you. And she comes back with, well, I'm getting the sense that when we're present having dinner together, your mind is somewhere else. He's going, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. And it got so bad, they had to terminate the meeting because they were putting him in a freaking rage by changing everything he was saying.
That's funny because that is actually an example of mind reading, right? By changing the words and intending to feed them back. Like there's a positive intention here.
Sure there is.
But it's not working. It's not working, right? So if somebody tells you something like, it really irritates me when you interrupt, and then you reframe that into some sort of ridiculous mind-reading statement, oh, so you're saying that I'm not allowed to talk, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a mind read. That's not what the person said. So this isn't necessarily the only way mind reading happens, though, right?
Right.
So it can happen as an active listening accidental distortion, but it can also just happen when you, in your own mind, or someone does this to you, they make an imagined scenario and then they tell you it as if it's truth, right? That's generally what mindscaping is.
On it.
Yeah.
Mindscaping, you said.
Did I say mindscaping? Mind reading? That's so weird.
Horrible.
Yeah,
mistake.
look at
horrible.
that.
Fail.
So if somebody says, well, you don't care what I think.
How do you know
that's true, right? And so how should you respond, Mike? Obviously, we can say, avoid making mind-reading statements.
Recognize ask for clarification.
So, if I'm going to avoid making a mind-reading statement, I can turn that into I feel. Focus on how you feel about a situation, not what another person means. You don't care. I feel unheard a lot of the time. That might be a fair way to present it because I'm not mind reading about my own emotions.
Right.
But I am mind reading if I declare that you feel a certain way or that you don't care or do care or value something or don't value something. I shouldn't tell you. And we always joke that mind reading is stupid because either you're telling somebody they already know.
You think that I did it. Well, wait a minute. If I thought that, I wouldn't need you to tell me because I'm already thinking
it'd either be,
and if I don't think that, which is right, then you're just telling me it's stupid. Yeah.
So you're either Captain Obvious. Hey, your name's Mike. Thanks, Captain Obvious. Or your name's Peter. You're telling me something that isn't true.
Yeah, thanks.
So either way, it's kind of stupid. That's the whole point. Now, the question is, though, and I know we're going to wrap this one up, how do you deal with it when someone does it to you?
Does what?
Mind reading. So you don't care what I think. You never listen.
How specifically do you know that?
Yeah.
You've got to be specific. And I'm going to just fire these. If you're through that point, I want to fire these really quick bullet points because these are how we take it into our own lives.
All right.
You have to know when it's a good time to bring in a mediator, another family member, a coach, a therapist to mediate. Sometimes we do need that. That means it's beyond do-it-yourself resolution, and that's okay if you can
That's
ahead
why
with that.
there's therapists and coaches
Right.
and counselors.
Listen to this one. Conflict. I'm glad, really happy with all these. Conflict is a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It shows us where growth is still possible. Getting past that then moves into fertile growth. Every conflict is an invitation to understand the needs, values, and identity of someone else more deeply.
Right.
That leads to greater freedom and understanding in the future because you're getting to know the person better.
So what they need, what they feel is important,
Sure.
values, and their identity, how they identify
How they
as a
perceive
person,
themselves.
how they
Yes.
self-perceive. Yeah, exactly.
Listen to this one. This is the conflict paradox, I'm calling it. When handled well, conflict strengthens relationships rather than breaking them.
Yeah, so in a sense, conflict that resolves well
Yeah.
makes relationships stronger.
And I'd like to end with the immortal words of the Joker. Never rub another man's rhubarb. Okay, give us the empowering question.
Okay,
Chris.
so that's it for episode 100 and
no, you get
200,
the question.
290.
Question.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wrapping up. I'm feeling.
wrap up.
I'm,
There's silly stuff to
I'm
do.
using filler phrases to get to the empowering question. Mike, I'm getting it on my screen here. All right, here's your empowering question.
Great.
Since discussion can rapidly change to conflict, what will I do differently the next time a spirited discussion goes off the rails and becomes conflict?
That's great. No time for a metaphor?
I
Or a
don't think so.
metaphor?
I don't
let's
think
just move.
we're fine to move on to our final call to action, which is head on over to MikeMandelHypnosis.com. And whether you're looking for personal growth and transformation skills using self-hypnosis and more, check out the Brain Software Syndicate. And if you're looking for hypnosis training because you want to be an awesome hypnotist to help other people, and you could use these skills as part of your schema when you're doing change work, that's really awesome. Check out the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. That's it.
And then come to Toronto and train with us.
right.
You'll have the best week of your life. Thanks once again.
And good night.